Here is our project on this video. Happy St. Patty's Day. Let us get started. I can't wait. Okay, I have my background done. Applied a coat of multi-purpose sealer first. Very important step to do on wood. With a foam roller I applied that, and then I applied 2 coats of a new color, light lime. That is a 2017 color on the back. I did Hauser dark green. Use the roller so you don't get so much paint down in through here. Using a brush, it will just ooze down in there and make a mess. Okay, so we are going to do some technique on our background here. So I've got an old dampened filbert brush. I've got my base color, and then I've got some media paints. I don't know which of these colors I'm going to use, but I put them out, and we'll see which ones we use. But these are the colors of media paints that I have put out on my palette. So we'll see how it turns out that I choose to use them. And on my palette, now normally I spritz plain water on my palette, but today I am going to spritz this flow improver onto my palette to help my paint have more open time so I can blend it and, you know, move it, but it won't lighten the color like water will or like an extender. Sometimes extender, if you get a little bit too much, it makes your paint a little bit thinner. And extender can get a little bit sticky and sometimes hard to use. So I was introduced to this product by a fellow painter, so I'm going to give it a shot here. I've mixed a little bit, just a little bit, in this bottle of water. So I'm going to spritz this on my palette and have that ready to go instead of plain water. And it doesn't bubble up like water does. So it kind of sits there on the paper a little bit more, and it probably, I don't know how quickly it will dry. Water dries up pretty quick. Okay, so I'm going to take some of my base color of paint, and I'm going to apply this in the middle. I'm not sure what I'm going to do to the outside edge yet, but I'm going to put our, this is a thin coat. I've got quite a bit of water in my brush, so I'm just applying a thin coat of this because I want the paints that I put in here to blend with this base coat here, but I need this base coat to be pretty wet. So again, this is where you could pick up the flow improver and put that in the paint instead of the water. Alright, so I'm going to go into my media paints. Now these media paints are very pigmented. If you have not used them yet, DecoArt came out with them last year. They're great paints to use, so you need just a small amount of these colors. So I am going to apply some in here and start slip slapping. This is that brightest green that I put out. Phthalo green yellow is what it is. And I'm just going to X. I'm making X's, and you've got quite a glare. So I don't know if I can hold it up and keep the thing from bouncing. I'm going to go into another green here. This is green gold. Get a little bit of my flow improver on my brush, and I'm going to put some of this in here. Get some more flow improver here. Let us move our paint around. We want to blend those two together a little bit. Alright, let's go into this. This other green is a much lighter green, yellow green light. It's a pretty color. I like that. So we don't want the whole thing to be just green, even though green is the theme here. I'm going to go into a little bit of yellow oxide, which is kind of like an antique gold. So I'll try to get some acrylic color that you can substitute here. And then this color is Hansa yellow medium. It's a bright yellow. So we just want to, I want to go back, I'm going to wipe my paint off. I want to go back into some of that first green that we put down and darken that up. A little bit of that on here. Wipe my brush off, and now I'm just going to blend that in with the other paints. There, that's on here. And you can put these layers on here, as many layers as you want. This media paint will dry much darker. When it's dry, the colors will really come forward more. A little bit more of that yellow. And it's just a gentle blending here, making a beautiful background. This is that gold. I'll get some of my flow improver mix here. So this is why the flow improver is so good for this project, because it really helps the paint not dry up so quickly, but it retains a lot of that color in there. Alright, very gently. I'm going to blend this out. And I think I'm going to be done with it. I'm going to let it dry and see how it looks. I just want to soften some brush strokes in here. And again, I haven't figured out what I want to do to the background or to the outer edges yet, but we will definitely figure that out. This is the center for now. So I think that looks pretty good. I really like those colors in there. I would suggest the colors that you use, like for the phthalo green, which is this really bright color here. You could use Hauser Dark Green. This one you could use like a leaf green or a festive green. This is yellow green light. This is green gold. Don't really have a color. I don't really have a color that is close enough to a green gold. Maybe olive green. Olive green's going to be more yellow, I think. It's the closest one. Or maybe foliage green. Couldn't think of the name of it. Foliage green would probably be good for that one. You could do cad yellow here. That would be a great one. And then this one would just be antique gold. So you can, if you don't have the media paints, but I highly recommend you getting them. They are just wonderful paints to work with. Then you can just use the regular acrylic paints. You may not have as bright, as vivid as color as what this will give us, but you'll still have really nice colors. Now I'm going to let this dry because I think I want a little bit more of this darker green back in there. So I'm going to let this dry completely, and I'm going to do a second layer of these colors on here. And the more layers that you get, the more depth you get. So, you know, if you're not happy with the first layer that you put on there, and this is almost completely dry, that's what I like about the Flow Improver, is because it will dry so much quicker than Extender, and you can move on to your product. So this might be dry enough to go ahead and give it another coat. Let me get some more Flow Improver out here on my... And I could just put this in a little cup and use it that way, or just, you know, I keep these little cups, so I could just dump some in here and dip my brush in it. But this is just as well for me. So we're going to go into the phthalo green yellow, which you could use Hauser Dark Green or any kind of a blue green. Holly green. Holly green might be a good one. So I will definitely try to get some good comparison colors here for those of you that want to just use your acrylic paint. So I really want some more of this dark color in there. Okay, I'm going to have to put some more paints out here on my palette. So let me do that very quickly. You don't need much on these media paints, but alright, I'm going to go into this darker green, which would be, what did I say this color would be? This would be like a, oh man, not really sure what color this one would be like. Olive green is too bright, but it's got that kind of olivey color in it. Go into some yellow. And my gold. Okay, I've got all my colors on here. I'm going to wipe my brush off because I got lots of paint in my brush. Now, it looks pretty yucky right now, I know. And so now I'm just going to need a little bit of that dark back in there. A little bit of my flow improver. And then just slip slap blend it. You still have to move very quickly because this does dry very fast. Even with the flow improver in it, you still need to move quickly and work that paint. And like I said, you can do as many layers on this background as you want to do. Now I think I've turned the whole thing green, so see, I'm not happy with this layer. So I am going to get it dry again. I need some more golds in there, and my dark green just mixed in with my other green, so it's a vicious circle here. But I'm going to love how it's going to turn out because I'm going to have so much depth from my layers that it's going to look fabulous. Okay, it's mostly dry, so let me try this again. I'm going to take my bottle and spritz my stuff on here. I think this time I'm going to take my paint out to my outer edges, but I'm going to be very gentle with how I do it. And I'm going to start with my yellows instead of my greens, because I keep blending my yellows in too much and I'm not seeing them. So I'm going to put my yellow on here. Oh, see, that was too juicy. Went down into my little cracks there. So I had to get my Q-tips out and clean that. I think I'll blend my cad yellow and my Hansa yellow medium and my yellow oxide together to get a more opaque color here. Bring a little bit of this out. And over here. I'm just barely tickling the brush on that outer edge there. Alright, now we can start going into some other colors. I wiped a little bit of the paint off. As I come out here, I'm going to be way back on the handle and just tickle those bristles across there. Okay, my next color, I'm going to go into that dark green. Love this green. Bring it out. Alright, spritzing it first worked much better because now it's not drying up as quickly, it doesn't feel like. So just pick up a variety of those colors. Stay on the tip of the brush back here, and then just gently blend. Ooh, too much liquid on my brush there. Pick it up so I can see how it looks up here. See where I need to blend anymore. Well, that's got some nice color in it. And anytime that you feel like you've just gotten it way darker than what you like, that's the reason we have the base color out. I never felt like I got too dark. But the base color will help you take it back down and soften it back down and just make it a little bit more muted of a color. It's time to get out of it because I think I lifted a little bit of paint there. So I'm just going to check my outer edges and see if I want to darken a little bit out here or brighten, as the case may be. Back on the handle, tippy toe. Just skimming it across there. You can just play and play and play in this. There's just, it's so much fun. There we go. Wasn't getting the yellow to come off my brush, but there we go. Got it. We got some nice color going on that now. I'm glad I took it all the way out to the border because that made a huge difference in how the piece looks. So I think we can be pretty happy with this. I think it's gonna look pretty good. Okay. Time for me to get out of it and let it dry. Okay, I'm getting my base coats on here, and I painted the hat black, the buckle antique gold, the band green tea. I mixed a little bit of limelight in with it for my first coat to make it a little more opaque. My money is moon yellow. Now I'm just putting on some 4-leaf clovers on here, and this is with my stencil. Now if you don't have a stencil, you can use the pattern lines, but I do want to give you a tip here that if you used this particular product, and if you used, I don't know, for this small of a bottle, you don't even need half, probably 1/4 of a cap full of this cap here. Is all you need. if you use more than that, which I squirted some in, and I know I got more than that in there, it has a finish in it. So when you go to paint, it's going to like, the first coat is not going to cover. So it's going to take probably 3 coats to base coat each item in. Now you want to be careful not to scratch across this if you use this, because this has sealer in it, has like varnish in it. So don't scratch across your design in any way, because it will remove it until you can get it painted and get it varnished on top. Then it will stick and soak down in there. So anything that you get on it will remove very, very easily with just a scratch. So I started to do this in a different color, and I didn't like it, so hopefully when I put my second coat on here, it will look better. So I'm just using my makeup sponge and dipping into my Limelight, which was the color that we put underneath this. Now you're probably thinking, we covered that color completely up. Why did we even put that color on there? Well, we still needed a base coat on our surface, because it would have taken far too many coats to work that out. And you do not have to use this. You can use water. Water will be just fine. So I like to give you plenty of options when you are painting, so that you don't feel like you have to do exactly as I do. There we go. I say that wasn't matching up, so oops, got my black there. So I have to touch up my black. You don't want too much paint on your makeup sponge, because they're not absorbent. So we're just going to put a couple of coats on here with our makeup sponge. Let's see, these other two are smaller. Little clovers. And then this one down here is the same size, and I've got one that's going to be on top of this one. A bigger one. So I'll set that aside. Let me touch up my black here. I'll give you a look at, oh, some green paint there. I'll give you a look at my stencil, and I don't know what all I'll be using off of it, but so on my stencil now, my stencils are clear. I like to use the clear stencils so I can see exactly where my design is underneath. So my stencils all come clear. This is everything that's on this particular stencil. So I really like these clovers with the little swirl in them like that. So you've got a good variety. I researched to see what kind of symbols or designs went with Irish and St. Patrick's Day, and this is all the things that came up. I really like these little things here. I don't know that I'm going to use it on this design, but those are fun little swirlies on there. Okay, so for this one down here, I've got 2 clovers on here, and let's see which way I have them turned. I have the second one a bigger clover, and the one behind smaller. That clover is just way too big. So since I'm using my stencil, I'll just stick with a couple of small ones here. But if you're just drawing yours, you can make your clover any size that you want. Okay, lift straight up on your stencil so you don't smear anything. And there we've got a couple of clovers down here. Now we're going to put more clover coming out of the hat, kind of like, you know, shooting out of the hat and sparkly type stuff all over this. So we got a lot to do here. Now, you have to be very careful if you use that finish, because even erasing, you can erase your paint. So be very careful. This is like painting on something that already has the finish on it. because I added this flow improver to my water. Okay, so I'm going to get a quick little third coat on my money here, and then we're going to get going. Okay, let's zoom in here a little bit. Now I want to start creating a little bit of green highlight on my hat. And black is going to be hard to bring that color up. So I'm going to start by taking some leaf green and a little bit of green tea. So it's going to be mostly leaf green, then just tip into some green tea. And that's all I've done right here on this one, is just kind of drag my brush along there. So I'm going to make this more the highlight side over here, so we're going to drag some of this color. You can use a wider brush than what I'm using. I started out with a small brush because I have such a small area there. So we want to create a highlight edge here. So when I load my brush, then I go wipe some of it off of my paper towel so I don't have a whole bunch on the tip of my brush to be causing some thick areas on here. So let's put a little bit of this over here. Not there. I want to put a little bit on the hat, on the other edge of the hat. So maybe out here on this edge. Okay, just a little bit. Now we're going to brighten this up with some of that media paint, I think. We'll glaze over it with some media paint. We can go along the top edge up here as well of the hat brim. So let's see how we want to brighten this up. Let's get our yellow green light media paint. I'm going to see if that one will work. And if you are not using media paint, you could try some holly green because it's a little bit brighter, but that's going to be a tough call. Festive green would probably be your best. Yeah, so let's go with some festive green. That's going to be closest if you're going to use regular acrylic paint. So I'm just going to thin some of this with some water, not a lot of water, just a little bit. I want it to kind of flow off of my brush nice. And I'm just going to glaze it kind of over where I put that other paint. And this color might not be as bright as what I would like. So that other green is going to be too dark, I think. Alright, so I got some of this out, which is green gold, and you would use olive green. It would be the closest color to it. So let me try some of that. I like that a little bit better. Okay, that brightens that up. So you can start out with your your leaf green and your limelight mix. Is that what I use? No, I use green tea mix. So this is the mix. These are the two that I mixed together. Leaf green and green tea. Leaf green, green tea. Okay, just brush mix. That was my first one. Then we'll come back with either the green gold or the olive green. Okay, with a highlight on there. And then we might come back with a final highlight of just white, but we're going to let that get good and dry before we do that. Okay, it's probably dry enough now. We can add a little bit of white. And I think I'm going to go to my filbert brush here. Load up some white, wipe it off on my paper towel, and just drag some white on there. Okay, so that'll give that a little bit more of a brightness on the hat. Okay, we're going to work on the buckle and the belt next, probably the belt. Okay, let's start shading on our belt here, and I'm going to go with some leaf green, and I'm just going to load my flat brush. You load whatever brush you like to float with. Personally, I love to float with a curved flat, which is this type of brush. They're discontinued, so you can no longer get them, and I have just a few left on my website. By the time this video comes out, I probably won't have any. So we're going to shade right here. This is leaf green. We'll go right along this edge. We're going to go on the inside of our buckle here on the belt part. Now I could use a smaller brush for this because it's a pretty big brush. It's a size 10. I could go down to an 8 or something. If you're using an angle brush, you can go down to a 3/8 inch angle brush. Put a second coat over here. You want to make sure you're dry though before you do this. You don't want to remove anything. I'm going to go inside here. I think that's probably dry enough for me to do the top edge. And then we go on the outside here. And the outside here. I'm going to have to redo the top there. It's not quite dark enough. So almost this whole section of the buckle over here will be dark. So you'll just have a little bit of color there. Okay, I want to make sure this is good and dry before I go back in here. This needs to be way darker up here. I'm going to let it dry, and I think the outside edges need to be just a touch. So I'm just repeating with this exact same color on this belt. Are we dry? We feel dry. Go along this edge. I'm going to do this one more time. I just feel like that needs to be just a scooch darker right there. Okay. So that is the shading on that. So let's do some highlighting here. We're going to go with our Snow White, and we're going to do a back-to-back float. Now I'm going to demonstrate a back-to-back float on a piece of paper. So we're going to load our brush, just the corner of it, with white paint, and we have water on the other side, and then we blend them on our palette. So we've got both water and paint, good amount of water in our brush, and we're going to lay our brush down, turn your piece around, lay your brush right next to that. If you get on top of it a little bit, that's okay. You can walk it out to make a bigger, wider float if you want, and you will repeat that. So it will not just be a one-time thing. Then I take my mop brush and I mop down in it. On paper it's a little bit different. It's going to absorb into the paper more. But that's a back-to-back float. Lay your brush down flat, soft pressure, flip the brush over, paint to paint. Lay your brush down, soft pressure. Okay? So we're going to put a back-to-back float right here in this area. I'm not going to go up into my shaded part if I can help it. And then I'm going to mop that to soften it. My mop brush is dry. I picked up paint and water, so I wiped it off onto my paper towel so I would not just keep removing paint there. Okay, so we'll do this in the center here as well. You've got to have water in your brush. You cannot do this if you just are trying to use dry paint or very little water. It's not going to work. You'll just be frustrated with it. You can dry brush as well. You don't have to do a back-to-back float if you don't feel comfortable enough to do them. But I want you to practice these things. This is what improves your painting skills and helps you become a better painter. If you just want to take a random piece of wood, you know, and just base coat it in a variety of colors, like each section different colors, and learn to do different things on that wood. It can be all the same color. It doesn't have to be different colors. And then just practice your stuff on that. You can practice it on paper, but paper will suck the water and the paint right out of your brush, so you don't get as much movement with that as you would by doing it on a piece of wood. Okay, let's shade on our buckle here. I'm going to use some soft black, and I'm not using a whole lot of paint. It's going to be very sheer, so I'm really going to work it into my brush. The more that I work it into my brush with my water, the more sheer that's going to become. So let's go around the outside here. Load a little bit more of that sand paint that I just did and go around this edge. You have to keep your brush kind of flat there. This has to dry completely because I've got a wide brush. I don't want to remove. So I'm going to go, let's see. I think I'll continue around the outside edge here. Oops, paint's on the other side, so let me flip my brush. And we'll put a highlight more on the inside edge. Okay, that's our shading on our buckle there. I might come back and deepen on the corner here. Right here. Maybe just a scooch more on this corner. This time I have less water in my brush and more paint. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's go around the inside edge with some Snow White. We really want to shine our buckle up here, so we're going to go around. Make sure that your shading is dry before you start this. You do not want to go through your shading because you'll just remove it if it's wet. Giving our buckle a little bit of depth here. So that was just kind of around the center. I think I might drag a little bit up here. Take the water edge of my brush and smooth that out. Same down here, water edge, smooth it out. Now I want to put some gold on here, I think, because we got to have our gold. So this is Dazzling Metallics Emperor's Gold. I'm going to take my filbert brush here because I just want to put a thin coat on here, so I'm going to mix a little bit of water with it to make it a little more sheer. Get the water off of my ferrule there. And I'm just going to put some of this on here. If I feel like when it dries it has taken too much of my shading and highlighting away, I will just come back and repeat that. Kind of messed up my buckle shape over there. I'm going to have to fix that with my black. See if my black is still wet enough to use. And I'm going to touch up around here. That looks a little bit better there. It didn't take down too much of our highlight, but a little bit. It took down a little bit of our shading. So I am going to reshade. You want to make sure your gold is dry, which it had a lot of water in it, so it should dry fairly quickly. And I'm going to reshade. Use a little bit more paint and less water. Reshade my edges there. I really want that buckle to pop out there. I don't think my gold was quite dry there. Oops, picked up paint on the wrong side of my brush. Okay, that looks pretty good on the buckle. I feel like I want it to have a little bit more shine though. So, let me see. Might want the same back-to-back float on the buckle itself. Take the shine all the way. Back-to-back float. Stroke along one edge. I'm going to get a little bit more paint. Stroke along one edge. Flip your brush. Stroke along right beside it. Use your water brush if you need to smooth out and soften. I'll put a little bit more water in my brush now. Here. I know you're getting quite a glare in the. There we go. That looks pretty good. You're getting quite a glare in my lights. So, oh, that really looks shiny. That looks really good. Really good. Okay, you'll want to transfer your pattern lines on here for your individual coins. So I'm going to take my color that I have, antique gold, and draw in these lines. I want to kind of curve them out on the edges. This is going to give us our individual coins to start out with. I'm using a detail liner, so you'll want to use the same thing. Now my your graphite lines, once you go over them, they'll be set in your project, so you won't be able to erase them. Okay, and I'm trying to decide if I want to put some lines on the edges here, like some coins have. Give it some illusion. Every little detail helps. These are just easy little stroke lines. A little bit too much paint there. Made that one a little thick. Okay, so that's how we're going to do those. Now on these out here, on the other coins, the ones that are more flat, I'm going to draw this in with a pencil. We can kind of create a little bit of an edge on these. And maybe not quite so big as that one. Put some details on these as well. This one back here, we could have its top edge showing a little bit. So this one right here, I've gotten way too fat. I'm going to get my detail eraser here. Erase very gently. My paint has had quite a bit of time to dry. So, okay, this coin comes around like that, so we don't want to... Those are just rough lines there. Okay, so we'll take some more of that antique gold. Water off my ferrule there. We'll just line that and add some little detail lines here on the edge. These are our gold coins. Are at the end of the rainbow kind of thing. Oops. Split my bristles there. Needed a little bit more water in my brush. Okay, that looks pretty good for the start of our coins. Okay, so for a design on these coins, you don't have to put a design on them, they can just stay plain. But I think I want to put, I think this symbol is called a Celtic cross, but I'm not sure because I'm not Irish, so I don't know. So if I'm saying that's something it's not, please don't be mad at me because I don't know. So we'll put I don't know if this will show up after we get everything done or not. I might add a tiny little bit of soft black in there just to darken that gold. So we make our first shape. And this goes across here and this comes down here, and that's not a very good job of making that. But let me try it on this one here. I'm just freehanding this, so that's probably why it just doesn't look very good. So we make our, like, I'm not sure what shape that is. It's a fairly easy thing to make, so don't stress out about it. I make this part first. Then these come along. And then you have one that goes through that one and connects with the other one. And this one back here, we'll see a little bit of it. Just a little bit of it. So I don't know by the time we're done with all of our shading and stuff if those will even show up, but I thought they would be fun to add on there. Okay, let's try shading with some soft black here. I don't know if it's going to be too dark. I might have to add another color to my palette here. Soft black's what we used up here. So it's going to be darker back here, and I've got just a small amount, oops, of paint on my brush. And I have blended water in my brush to get it a very sheer color. So see, I've hardly got any paint. So it's just a soft float. We can get darker later, but for now we want to keep it pretty sheer. So I'm going to go around each of these coins, staying up on the tip. I probably should start at the bottom and work my way up. That way I won't remove paint from the one above. I'm going to pick up some water and a tiny little dot of paint and work it into my brush. This one needs to be a little bit darker. It's a little bit wider across the coin edge than what I want it to be. Up on the toe. I know this is some fine detail stuff and you're thinking, "Ugh, I don't know if I can do that," but come on, press forward. You've got this. I know you have. You've been watching my videos for a while. You got this. Tippy toe. I'm up on the tip toe of that brush. Using the water edge to soften. Okay, so now we're starting to look like we've got a stack of coins there. By the way, I have a size 8 flat brush, so you could go down to a 1/4 inch angle brush if you're using an angle brush. So now we want to go around our coins here. We'll come back and do the edges on these a little bit later. So let's keep our shapes nicely. Don't want some weird shaped coin here like that one's trying to be. That one really is trying to be contrary there. Okay, this one here I'm going to, let's see, our highlight is coming from the side. Probably should have shaded on this edge here. And we'll have our highlight coming this way. So this one will shade here. It'll get a little bit of a highlight there. And then this one we'll put, now remember this is a very sheer color. If we need more, we can add more, but I certainly don't want you to try and have to take any off or worry about that kind of thing. I'm going to get a little bit more water, a little dot of paint, work it into my brush until you get that soft look right there on your palette. Up on the tippy toe, a little bit too much water. Let me wipe that off. When you're up on the tiptoe like this, you want to leave very soft paint, but you don't really need that water to be thinning it down, making it too sheer. So we're going to do all of our edges here. We're going to highlight on our edges. My bristles are coming apart because I hardly have any water in my brush here. So there is our first shading. Actually, let's add a little bit, too much water. Let's add a little bit on the sides here. Let's do side. I'm going to walk that out just a little bit because that's more the shaded edge there. And we're going to have our highlight is coming this way. So most of the side of this one is going to be highlighted. So I'm going to put just a little bit of this down here. Okay. Let's see. This one's going to have a little bit of some shading here because of those coins being so close. So we'll put a little bit along that edge. Okay, that coin got a little funny shaped, but when I go to add my highlight, I can straighten that up a little bit. Alright, let us add our highlight. We're going to start with some cadmium yellow. So we're going to want to put our highlight on this edge, on the top one, kind of walk it over a little bit. This is where we might cover up some of our symbol there on the coin. So, and then on the coins here, we want to just pull a streaking of a highlight in here. Cad yellow's a little transparent, so it will not cover up all of those little markings that we put on there, which is very nice. Alright, we'll go along this edge. And now let's see if I can reshape this coin here. Probably will have to do that a couple times or come back with my moon yellow, which probably would be the best idea. So I got that coin weird shaped. I mean, extremely weird shaped. So I'll take my round brush here and fix it with some moon yellow. Okay, this one got a little kind of weird too. So I'll have to refloat that shading there. So let me go move over to another coin. So I'll go to this one and we'll do this edge here. And along the edge down there. Okay, that's all dry. Let me put that shading back in real quick before I do anything else. Okay. That's better. Alright, let's see if this has got enough on it. I can cover it up with some cad yellow. And a little bit of cad yellow along here. Just stay up on the edge of your brush right there when you're putting it in this small little area. You've got some shading down in there and you really don't want to cover it all up, so it's along that edge. And this one here, we're going to put it mostly in the middle. Okay. And we will also go down this edge of it. Just a little. I'm going to have to fix this one still. My detail here got lost. A bit of water in the mix. Well, they look a little bit better. This one here needs some lines on it. Okay, let's pick up some white here. Some Snow White. Okay, let's get our Snow White. I'm going to thin it down a little bit with some water. And touch my tip to my paper towel. I want to add some highlights of white on our coins, edges. Those little lines that we put on there. Oops. Not quite that thick. Stay up on the tip of the brush. You're just barely adding some paint on there. And then we'll do it on the edge of this one. So all of our edges where we put lines, we can add a few of these little white lines. And I want to add some of this on our symbol in here because this is going to help give this a little bit of dimension, I hope. That's my goal. So just a little bit of white here. And I think along these lines here, well, those lines are not straight at all, and you're not even on camera, so there we go. This is just under that edge right there. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's continue with our white highlight here. So we'll go along the top edge here. And a little bit on these coins. kind of sheer, and we'll go down this edge. Okay, we're going to create a wash on these. And now I'm using my media paints, which is yellow oxide and Hansa yellow medium. But you can use cad yellow and mix a tiny bit of antique gold in with it. But you've got to keep it sheer, especially if you're using the straight acrylic paints. So you take just a little bit of both of those colors, and you add quite a bit of water in here, because we're just creating a little glaze. Okay, and we're just going to glaze this over. We might have to come back and redo our highlight. I got that one a little bit darker than what I wanted. I was testing it on that one. So yeah, I think we'll come back and redo our final highlight on here. But I wanted my coins to be more gold. So I think that really pops them out quite a bit. So we'll just come back with a little bit of white and add a little bit of white highlight on here. Not very much. Don't get carried away here. I think this edge needs just a little bit on it. Definitely want to give that those coins their roundness, their shape. It's important that they have their nice shape. That's a little bit too far over, so we'll just take some of that back with our water. And maybe back to back on here. Mop it. There we go. So we'll wide angle out a little bit so you can kind of see those coins on there. That one's still kind of funny shaped, but you know, they are leprechaun coins, so we're just going to leave them. I think they look pretty good. I do want to add one more thing to my coins. Now this is completely optional. You do not have to do this if you don't want to, but I'm going to add some glamour dust on mine simply because these coins are magical coins. You can leave it off and leave them plain. We're going to be adding some more of this glamour dust in some other areas on here. But my coins are magical. So I am going to put some glamour dust on them. One or two coats, whatever you would like, on your magical coins. You probably won't be able to see the sparkle in them until they dry. This one you can see a little bit of sparkle in it. Alright. Okay, we're going to work on our feather here next. So I am going to thin some more white. I'm going to use a long detail liner. This one has very long bristles. It's a 5/0, but 10/0 is what I generally use. So let's see how I drew this on here. So my feather starts somewhere around in here and goes up up and over. I need more water in my paint here. This brush has a little burr or something on the end of it, so I might have to swap it out. I'm going to come up, and our feather goes about there. So this part down here is the end of the feather, so it can be a little bit fatter and come thinner. Okay, so now the easy part is just stroking. Oops. Let me see if this one's going to work for me, this brush. If not, I'm going to get my 10-0 liner out. We're going to stroke some feather hairs, whatever they are, coming off of each side. We're going to start with white. Yeah, I think I'll have to go to my 10-0 liner because it will hold a lot more paint than this one is wanting to hold. Side. I'm going to put the first layer on here. I might have to get some longer ones. I probably should do that. Follow the shape of your feather. So we got the beginning of our feather there. Oh, that looks really good. We need to get this coat dry. Okay, mine's dry. So thin a little bit more. Now remember, I can't remember if I just said this or not. Thin your light colored paints with your clean water. Don't try and thin it with your dirty water. You'll just be tinting your paint, and then it will no longer be the color that you want it to be. So I'm just going to apply a second layer on here. Of the white. A magical feather. Okay, that was one side. Now we will do the other side. Just keep adding water to your paint as you need to if you didn't mix enough paint. And just add a little bit more water to some paint and keep going. Okay, I think our feather looks pretty good. And that's a pretty easy feather. We're going to do a couple more things to it, but that is a very, very quick, easy feather. Okay, let's put some strokes of the glamour dust in our feather. We are going to have a very super sparkly feather, and then we'll re-stroke the center line to bring everything back together. Everything is magical, so we gotta have some glamour dust going on here. Okay, I'm going to re-stroke the center line with some thin white. Thinning down a little bit more of it. Paint got a little bit dry here. So pulled towards me just because it is much easier to do. Just put that line right back in the center. And then let it just fade away on the end there. Okay, our magical feather, which we have so much glare on this project we can't see. We're seeing some of the sparkle down here now. We can't see the sparkle in the feather yet, so I might add a second coat of glamour dust on the feather, second stroking of glamour dust, so we can really sparkle that up. I don't want to cover the whole thing with the glamour dust, because then it will just look too filled in. So I just need some of that going through there. Okay, I want to work on my clover now. And even though that is a good undercolor there, I don't my green here. I don't want them to be that light. So I want a lot more 4-leaf clovers in here. So we're going to have some that's coming out of the hat, they're kind of exploding out of the hat and kind of jumping out and creating a so this one, that's awful big. So I might just do, I think that's the size I did down here. What was this one up here? I think it's the same size. It's a little bit smaller. So we'll put this big one here. Back to our makeup sponge. Now I'm going to mix green tea and festive green to get a little bit of a base color here. And we're going to have to go with just green tea because we're going over black and that's not going to cover. So we'll go over these with some green tea. We don't necessarily need the stem there. I'll probably cover that up. But I want to get a nice... Ooh, that was almost too much paint there. So while that is drying, because that might take a minute, my paint was awful wet. I come down here to this one and put just some festive green on it. So you would undercoat yours with the green tea. Oh, didn't even get that on there right. And then come back with the festive green. See if I can get this in the right place here. Really don't want to get green on my coin. I have to do some touching up there, it looks like. Let's see, down here. So I'm going to get all of my first ones on with just the green tea. So they'll all go on the same way. So don't feel like what I'm doing is, you know, because I probably won't show you all of these up here, but it will be on your pattern. So I'm going to go and finish getting all of mine up here so I can get them all coated with the festive green. Now if you're just painting them in, you're going to undercoat them with the green tea and then come back and make your top coat the festive green. Okay, I gave you the wrong mix. I should have read my directions that I've already typed out here. But the undercoat is an equal mix of green tea and limelight, or light lime. So that's what you want to do first. That's why mine were not getting opaque enough for me. Got a big sponge here now. I've got to be careful I don't get into areas I don't want to get into. So now you're just going to go in and place some random little they're going to be kind of popping out of the hat there. Okay, before we go in and finish doing our final base coat of our clover, which as I'm designing this, I think we will do the sparkly smoky stuff in the background and then put our clover on, but you can do it either way. Because I never know what I'm going to throw into a design. So I've got a dry, scruffy brush here. I've got Snow White on it, and I loaded it dry, and now I'm removing pretty much all of the paint. Well, you think it's all of the paint from the brush. And I'm just going to go in here and with very gentle pressure start putting in some swirly kind of smoky stuff. We're going to put some sparkly stuff on here. I'm going to wipe a little bit off. That's getting a little bit heavier than what I want. I am doing just the gentlest of pressures. This is going to come down to here, maybe come onto our hat, come around. We want it coming kind of out of our hat here. So I'll go back and recoat those. So this is just going to be some sparkle stuff going on here. Come down to our money. Might get just a tiny bit more paint here. Okay, sorry, had a little distraction there. So I just want to put a little bit more kind of coming down here. That's just kind of the background for our sparkle stuff kind of coming out of our hat and coming around, and we are just going to be creating some fun stuff here. Okay, so our next step here, let me lock this in place for our next one here. Okay, sorry, I had to find my brush. I couldn't find it. Okay, so now I'm going to use, this is a rake brush. So it's got the long bristles on the end of it. This is a Royal one, 1/2 inch. But you can use any brand of rake brush that you have. You could probably use a fan brush probably as well to do this. We're just going to spatter some white on there. Now I don't really want my hat to be spattered, so I will probably put something over it to kind of block the majority of that spatter over on this side. So we're going to take our brush and get it wet, and then it's going to be pretty full of water. I can touch it to my paper towel to get some of it out, and we're going to go into our paint and thin our paint down. Now you want to test this. I'm going to actually test it on here. So I just take a brush and you can do it like this with your finger, but you got to have your paint the right consistency. Okay, so we want those little spatters like that, almost like little stars coming off. So I'm going to cover this right here, and I'm going to start spattering. Where it goes out there, I'll just take a damp brush and clean it up probably. Ooh, I don't want those kind of run things on there. That's where I'm hitting my brush and projecting it that way. I don't really want to be doing that. Okay. I'm going to put some down here. Wherever we put that smoky kind of stuff is where we want to put this. Ooh, made sure those were dry before I put that paper on it. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. A little bit more here. Wherever you want it more concentrated, you can splatter a little bit more. Okay, see, I've got it all, all over this side of my design, and I don't really want it over there, so I'll take a damp brush and remove them before they dry. And if I can't get them off, I'll just touch up with some black paint. But I want sparkles over the majority of it, so, you know, the spatter stuff. So I've got some way out here that I don't really want to have way out here. So just remove those. We can use our dry eraser here and erase those. Just a little bit of water. These were starting to dry pretty good, so take that one off my letter. That one's still pretty wet. So any place that you do not want spatters to be, you can just remove them with a damp brush, or I messed that one up, so I'll just erase it. Alright, probably really didn't need to sit on camera and watch me do that, so, but you just take them out, and I really smeared these down here, so I might respatter them. I'm going to let my all my spatters dry, and then I think I might come back in and redo some of these down here. We're going to add some really bright stars on here, so we don't have to, you know, be too stressed out about how our spatters look. Okay, I re-stenciled in all of my clover, so some of them don't quite line up, but we're going to be doing some shading and highlighting, so we'll get them where they look good. I had a few spatters down here that I didn't really want to have down here, but I think they're on here now because I didn't see them till it was too late. So anyway, we're going to be adding some more sparkle in here, so don't worry. We want to concentrate on our clover now. So my pictures for this packet are going to be kind of out of sync because some of them are already going to show the clover in here, but really you need to wait and put the clover on after you add, you know, all this smoky stuff and the spattering in the background. Okay, so any of your clover that you can't tell, you know, where the pattern line is, you can go back in and draw that line. If you can't tell where one lays over another one, for example, you can go in and just draw those lines in so you can kind of separate your clover in there. So we're going to start shading with some Hauser Dark Green. So each one, let me get my pencil back, what I do with it. Each one of these clover will come to a point at the very center of this. Okay, and they're going to have like a vein down the center of them. Okay, so we want to start by shading down here where they come together at that point. All the way down into that center. Okay, so I'll do one over here. I want you to transfer your lines if you need them in there. we're just creating a little V shading down here at the center for each petal. We'll go around where one lays on another, and then you can kind of tell where the center would be here. So this one will just have a couple of petals that will have some detail on them. And then we'll go around on this edge. This is going to pull this one forward, and we will also shade right here where the stem is, on the stem. Okay. Let's see, I think I will do one more here, the shading on it, and I'll finish 3 of them out for you, and then you can, I'll go off camera and finish the rest because they all will be the same. So we're shading at the base of them. Okay, so now we want to, and you can go down to a small brush. I have an 8 flat here, so you can go down to whatever sized brush works for you. We're going to go down the center here, like creating a vein down the center of these. We won't put a whole lot of detail on our clover. I mean, they could have tons of detail, but I think we'll kind of limit it here to a little bit. Okay, so for these up here, because they are so small, I'm just going to take my liner brush with some thin down Hauser dark green. So you've got to add some water to your paint. So we'll just add our vein like this. We want it coming from the center here. Okay. Let's get ready to add a highlight before we deepen our shading here. Okay, our highlight's going to be with olive green. So we'll go along the outside edges of our clover. This is where you can get your nice petal shapes. If you feel like you messed them up when you either painted them on or stenciled them on. Just around the tips here. And see, it will fade back in there. It's starting to fade back in there already. So I might have to go to a smaller brush on these out here because I might just swallow these up. I'm kind of staying, because I'm using a larger brush, I'm kind of staying tilted and a little more on the tip. Kind of goes underneath that one, so that probably needs a shading there instead of highlighting right there. I'm not trying to cover up my shading, but I'm trying to define the petal a little bit better there. I just coming down the side just a little bit. Okay, let me go out and do that other one out there. Okay, a little bit on the edges. And if your stem is on there, you can add a little bit of this on the stem, on the end of it. Brighten up that stem a little bit. Okay, I want to deepen my shading now. Okay, I'm going to mix a tiny little dot of black in with my Hauser Dark Green just to darken it up just a tiny bit. Don't get too carried away here. And we'll just put this, I'm just going to keep it concentrated in the middle of our clover here. Just tap a little bit in there. Okay, let's take our liner brush and thin out some olive green. And on each side of our center vein, maybe. I think we'll just do it on one side. Let's see, our highlight's coming from this side, so we'll just highlight on one side of our just touch back with my finger because I felt like there was a lot of paint on that one. Alright, let me look at my table here. Okay, I want my clover to be a little bit more green, so I'm taking a wash of the green gold here. Normally I would have you use olive green, but olive green is going to be too opaque. So we could try some Festive Green. Is a pretty bright green, so we could try that on one. Okay, I painted in another one real quick so I could wash over it with Festive Green. Because Festive Green is a more transparent color, and when you do a wash, it's mostly water. It's mostly water, just a little tint of paint in it. And I'll wash it over this one. So you can kind of see the difference there. So these two have the green gold, and this one has the Festive Green. So I'll put in my packet. You can do either. So on my design I will do both. So I'll put some Festive Green on this one. I don't think that I'd put the green gold on it, but I can't remember. So if I did, I'm just double glazing it. So we can bring our I might like the Festive Green better, I don't know, than the green gold. So yeah, let's just do it with the Festive Green. I think the Festive Green looks nice. If you have the green gold, you can do it both. You can glaze under with the green gold, then on top with the Festive Green to get a nice pop to your clover, because we really want to bring them forward and give them a lot of attention. So I'm going to go finish up the rest of them just like I did those, and then we'll come back and work on this some more. Okay, I have all of my clover painted in, and I washed over some with just the Festive Green and some with the green gold. So a variety of color is just perfectly fine. So now I'm just coming in and adding some nice sparkle marks on here. You want your ink to be really, really inky consistency with this. The one that goes straight up and down, the one that goes across, like you're making a letter T, those should be longer. I'm going to put some down here on my coins. And they all don't have to be great big, so don't feel like you have to make them all ginormous. Try and not lay my hand in one that I've already put down. So you want to try and keep these as thin as you can. You can make some little ones back in here. Wherever you want a sparkle, an extra sparkle, just put one in. A little more paint here. Can't see very well, so I'm going to darken it up just a little bit. I'm going to put a couple of little ones in here. They don't all have to be great big, so that one's. These little ones, I really want to touch them back. Little bitty tiny ones. Paint here. Alright, let's put some over here. Okay, now I'm going to put a few let's say on a particular clover. So like this one out here, this one right here, just a little shine on a few of the clover. Got a little burr on the end of my brush. That happens when I'm doing this type of some spatters back in here. Okay, put a couple little ones out here. Little bit of more paint. Ooh, or a lot more paint. A lot more water, less paint. bit. I think that's going to be enough sparkles for us. So down here, I feel like we need one down here. Okay, I want to let them dry, so I'm going to go do the shading down here on the bottom and let them dry. Okay, so that's drying. Let's shade underneath this stuff here. So I'm going to take a little lamp black and work it into my brush just on that corner to where it's a little more sheer. So you see I've got water in my brush to really soften that down. So I'm just going to touch the water edge of my brush to my paper towel. Then we're going to go and float a shading. And I need more paint because I've got, oh, not that much paint. I've got quite a bit of that flow extender on my piece, so I'm going to need a little bit more paint than probably you are if you didn't use it. So we're just going to create their kind of shadows under the pieces. I'm going to mop as I go because I don't want my paint to dry. If your paint dries before you can mop it, it's just dry. You can't go in there and soften it in any way. So I'm going to put a little bit of a shadow here. For my feather. And let's see. I'm going to go underneath the hat back here. I'm going to get a little bit more paint in my brush here so I can put that in a little bit darker back there. Really want to stay off my coin. I'll mop that. Got a little bit on my coin there. Alright, let's go around these. And we can bring a little bit of that up onto the coin. Reload here. Everything back in here should be dark. Now, this is probably already dry. I'm not going to be able to mop that any. So I have to live with how that looks. And it's because of that flow extender that I put in here. So it's causing my paint to dry a little bit quicker. I'm going to shape this coin here a little bit better. So that's how we do that. Okay, I've got these two little clover down here. So let's get a little bit of shading here around them. Definitely want to mop that. That's a little bit bigger of a shading than I wanted there. A little dark right there. going to put a little bit back in here just because I want this to be a little bit more shaded back in here. Try and stay off my coin. Okay, I'm going to try and go between my feather things here, and if I get it on my white, then I'm going to just go back and redo the white strokes on there. Just kind of want to bring that out just a little bit. Okay, a little bit of water on my brush, a little bit of paint, blend them in. When I first started out, I had probably not enough paint, so I'm going to shade around this one just a little bit. That'll pull it forward a little bit. So let's give it like a little bit of a ledge here to sit on. Get it straight, and then we will bring it all the way across over here. So that means this back in here needs to be dark because of where we put our little ledge thing coming across. So just put some in, kind of darken that back in there. Bring this out a little bit. Don't really want it on top of my clover, so I'm going to take a damp brush and clean that off. I have to glaze over that one again, maybe. Okay, I think that looks pretty good for that. We don't have to have a lot of detail. We just kind of needed to set it on something. We didn't want it to be like, you know, floating around somewhere in midair. So I think that looks pretty good there. We've got one more thing that I want to do here. Well, maybe a couple actually. Okay, so we've got to have our glamour dust in here. So where our stars are, we're just going to put some over them. You don't have to actually line each one again if you don't want to. Just kind of put some where they're at. So give it a little sparkle when we turn it towards the light. And you can repeat this as many times as you want to. I say you can never have enough blingy bling on there, but that's going to make those little star things shine. So I'm going to let them dry, and then I'm going to put a couple of more coats on there, I think. Okay, our lettering is the last thing that we have to do on here. And I have decided I am going to do it with olive green. And I'm just using a round brush to base it in. So let me demonstrate over here the lettering. So let's say we have an H, or not, an H. Maybe I should do it with my chalk pencil. Maybe I can see that if I can find it. Okay, so let's say we have an H, and it's more narrow up here and gets wider down here. Now let me just draw it in like it's on the pattern. This one starts over here and comes around. It's narrow up here, it gets wider down here, and then it has this thing that comes across. Okay, so to paint your letter in, you're going to have your paint thinned with a little bit of water. Load a good round brush with your paint. You're going to start at the top, and you're going to give pressure in the fat areas and just fill that in. This is probably a little bit fatter than it is on the piece because I shouldn't have had to fill in like that. So this is going to be more narrow up on the tip. Flatten the brush, come up on the tip and bring it around, because it really has a hook on it like that. So you're going to be up on the tip, so you're going to be a little more on the tip here because it's very narrow at the top. Then you're going to lay the brush down, give pressure, pressure, pressure up on the tip, up, 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 up. And this is a little bit fatter here. I do not generally like to go at an angle or up like this because I have way less control of my brush then. So you practice with your brush. I like to pull down and towards me on most of my letters. I think that gives you better brush control. So you're just going to give pressure in the wider areas, be up on the tip in the more narrow areas. So let me get you on camera for this. Make sure you have no water on your ferrule. You don't want the paint running down when you are painting lettering, especially. Pressure up on the tip, stop. Okay, here we go. Pressure up on the tip, stop. Bring this line down to that one. Okay, then this. That should be a pretty fine tip there. Got eraser shavings there. My H here. Okay, a little bit more water in my paint mix here. Pressure. Most of these letters are going to be pretty easy. I'll have to come back and do 2 coats because I got my paint too thin. So if you don't want to do 2 coats, don't get it thin like me. These fatter letters like this can just be fill in. So, yep, I will come back and do a second coat because I definitely need to have a little bit more. Pressure up on the tip. Not really sure what this is. It has some kind of weird little loop on the end of it. Like that. But you can make your S look however you want. I already did the T. I was practicing the color to see if I would like this color. So this is pretty thin through here. Pressure up on the tip. On the tip. Pressure up on the tip. Flat brush up on the tip. Up, 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 up. A little bit of pressure up on the tip. Okay, then these will probably be mostly just fill in here. you can connect these T's if you want. Just makes it easier. Pressure up on the tip. Got a little apostrophe up here. That's just a comma stroke. And this one's going to be kind of a fill-in one. Comma stroke there that connects on the end. Okay, I'll go off camera and do the second coat, and then I will come back and show you how to do the drop shadow or outline of them. I'm not really sure how this D is supposed to look through there, but it doesn't quite look like I drew it correctly. It's actually not supposed to connect up there, but it's connected now. I'll move this A over a little bit. It needs to be closer to the Y. So I'll erase those lines there. And then our Y. And the tip here. Okay, so there is our lettering. First coat. So I'll let it dry. I'm going to erase my graphite lines before I apply my second coat on there. Alright, I've got my two coats on my lettering here, so we're going to do a outline on them. Let's zoom in here. So I'm going to use black. Use your same liner brush that you used, or round brush that you used. And I'm going to go right next to each letter. Wherever it's whitest, I will give more pressure. So we're going to go on the left sides. Pressure. Up on the tip. Tip, 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 tip. Release. And we'll just be tiptoeing it here. And usually where one stops is where the other one stops, okay? So this one stopped here, so we're going to start it right here. And pressure. I'm going to go right to that, and then come down below and give some pressure. And we'll go along the top of this. Okay, so over here on this one, I'm going to be up on the tip beside that. Pressure, 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 stop. And then down here, pressure, 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 up, tip, 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 stop. And then we'll have a little bit here. And then we will come along the top of this, all the way across. Okay, so there's our H. So A is up here, up on the tip, pressure, up on the tip, and release. We'll give a little bit here. And we'll come down this. Okay, and this one, I think we'll go there. Okay, here we go. And the P, pressure, 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 pressure up on the tip. And have a little bit here. And then this inside here. Okay, let's do this P here. Pressure, release. release. A little bit here, and then this one starts here, pressure, release. I might widen this one up just a little bit. Match that other P there. You can do this on either side of your letters. You don't have to do it on the same side that I'm doing it on. If going on the other side, it feels more natural to you, then you can just do that side. Got it a little bit on my letter there. Okay, so let's move on to the S here. The S, we're going to have some right here. And then this one's going to start here. A little bit of pressure. Up. Pressure. Release. I started to go up at an angle, away, you know, kind of away from me. So it didn't want to work out the best. Okay. Pressure, release, right here, and we'll go here. A little bit too long. Here, and don't forget our little dot here. This moves fairly quickly, and with black you should only need one coat. Pressure, tip, release, and a little bit there. So here we're going to start here. Pressure, tip, release. And we'll go along this side. This side will be a wide. So pressure, 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 up on the tip, release. We're going to start here, a little bit of pressure, release, and then right here. I'm going to widen that up right there. Okay, you gotta be aware of when to release pressure and let go, and then start, you know, like this one here had to be stopped about where that one was, and then this one had to be started about where that one stopped, and vice versa. So pressure, up on the tip, release, a little more paint. You don't ever want to force it, so make sure your paint is the right consistency, or you'll just get frustrated with your project. Pressure, up, release, and come to it. Pressure, up on the tip, release. And now we need to go along the bottom here. Need a little bit more water in my paint. I want that round tip on my brush when I'm starting, unless I'm starting in a place that needs to have the brush flat. Okay, last word here. More paint. Pressure, tip, release. Okay, I'm going to come over here. Pressure, tip, release. We'll come down this edge here. And then we'll have a little bit here, and then a little bit here. The D one is a little bit tricky because of the way it lays out there. Okay, so that's all of our letters there. And I think I will streak a little bit of white on the top of these. First, I think I will glaze over them. What color do I want to use? I think I might use the green gold because I think it will really make that olive green pop. Okay, I'm going to take just use this round brush that I was using and create a little glaze or wash by adding water to your paint. It's just a pretty sheer color. And then I'm going to put some, try to stay off my black so I don't have to restroke my black here on my green. See if I like how that brightens it up, and I think it brightens it up nicely. So, I mean, this is just a little wash of this color. When I'm getting out of line there, I was just touching it with my finger. Seems like I got it on my black. I don't want it on my black. So you could do this step before you put your black on. So in my instructions, I will probably have this step and then the outlining step, as well as the highlighting step that we're going to do next. You could do that before you outline. This is that green gold. So if you are not using the media paints, then you can just eliminate this step because oops, not over my black. Antique green, if you have it. I think I have some. Might, I don't know. Might be too dark. But you could try that if you don't have this green gold. Sorry, my phone keeps going off. My husband is downstairs working on our checkbook. He keeps asking me questions. Okay, let's take that same round brush and add a little highlight on the top of here just by dragging some Snow White down the tips. Maybe across this a little bit. So you're not going to fill in your whole green area. You're just dragging it down, not quite halfway. And we can repeat this to make sure it pops out. Technically, this little dot should not have any, but I'm going to put a little bit on it anyway. Just drag it and let the brush kind of flick. Yeah, I probably went about halfway on most of these, so a little bit farther than what I originally was going to do, but so I'll just go back and quickly repeat that just to give it a little bit more brightness. Almost done with this project. Right angle out a little bit more. Alright, I'm going to take some photographs of it and see if I like it. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with this project. I think it turned out great. I love our little sparkle on our coins and our feather and our stars up here. A little bit different project for me, but I really enjoyed painting it. Had a lot of fun really creating this background. So I hope that you enjoyed painting this one too. I can't wait for you to post pictures so I can see them. And I thank you so much for painting with me. I really, really appreciate your continued support. I will see you guys on the next one.